Now, okay, guys, so welcome to the second portion of our basic HVAC pricing. Today, or the day before yesterday on our first recording, we talked about equipment replacement. How do we calculate that? How do we figure out, how to keep our bills paid, overhead, how to keep our field expenses paid, direct costs, and then how to have some profit left over, right? In taxes and all this other good stuff, commissions. So we talked about the general structure of that. Hopefully it made some sense to you guys and it kind of helped you out. And for many of you advanced guys, maybe you were able to compare this method with what you're using, and the same will apply with service. So without further ado, this will probably take me 10 minutes to get this rascal to share. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go right into the PowerPoint. And Dennis, if you'll let me know, you'll have to unmute. I'm going to go into presentation mode, maybe. And then I have to switch displays so that you can see. All right, now you should see Pretty Pete over there with a board up. And it says
we got you, bud. Looks good. You're solid.
Okay, we're solid. Okay, good. So I'm going to be looking over back and forth. No, I'm good here. Okay, so I have to look at this for the mouse. So we're going to talk about pricing. This screen here is actual. That's the board behind me. But I did some of this work in advance. Now, by way of very quick review, because many of you may have missed the first portion, one of the first things that we want to factor in is the maturity of your business. When you're looking at something called KPIs, for those of you who are familiar with that, key performance indicators, those are measurements against other successful companies, like percentage of sales and things like this, things that you can actually compare your numbers to their numbers and see, how can I improve? But keep in mind, the larger, more successful businesses, they are mature. They are working at capacity. They're not busy one week and just nothing to do for 2 weeks straight because there's nothing on. They have a mature business. You can have a mature business too, but there are things that you have to do first. First of all, we look at where we are. We look at what that mature business model will look like, and then there's a process to get there. In the meantime, we're going to have to burden your overhead additionally if you're going to keep from sending your employees home when things get slow all the time. You may have to do it sometime, but if you do it too much, we're going to lose employees. So yeah, this is a very old picture of my business back in before I sold it in 99 thereabout. So what is overhead? Well, this is anything that's not that's an expense to your company that's not directly related to the job at hand. In other words, it's not a direct expense or cost. Like if you bought a furnace to put in, that's a direct cost. But if the office staff ordered it, that office personnel's time, that's overhead and all the associated expenses with that. So you have your office, your rent, all that good stuff. Then you have training. There's yours truly way back in some training sessions, business training. You have to account for that because you got to pay your employees when they're training. You have to pay yourself when you're training. And then if you have shop personnel, now you have office personnel, but what if you have some people in the shop? This was our old sheet metal shop back in the day. And so maybe this here is a little bit of breakdown on what some of those expenses would look like. So we've got rent and your office staff, all your utilities and internet, cell phones, basically all of this stuff. Your advertising budget, generally, that's a percentage to total revenues. Depending on how aggressively you're trying to grow, it might be 5-6%. But if you're mature and you've got that organic business, you may only be 2% of total revenues. That's nice. And then specialized equipments and tools. Anything business related, all of your taxes, etc., and so forth. So this is what overhead is, and what we do is we add all of that stuff up, and not just month to month, but for the whole year, and divide it by 12 months. Because some things we may pay periodically, maybe annually, every 6 months. And so if we'll add all that up, kind of average it out, we know that every month we have to come up, in this case, with $10,000 to meet overhead. You have to plug your numbers in, obviously. Well, that overhead isn't equal. Generally, we have to break that up into different departments. And for the ease of this exercise, we're just going to use two: a service department and an installation department. If you do plumbing, or if you do, duct cleaning, other types of services, you'll have other departments. And what we have to do is we have to assign the overhead to the proper department. Okay. Now, let's talk about how we do that. So essentially, let's say you have a person who handles the telephone in your office. How much time is that person spending supporting the installation crew versus how much time is that person spending supporting the service department? And I think you'll find service demands a lot more overhead than installation does. Installation generates more revenues, but service needs more support. Installation, they may run their vehicle out to one job per day. What is that wear and tear on your vehicle? Service tech may run 4, 5, 6 calls per day. What is that wear and tear on your vehicle? So all of these are factors. And so it's a bit of an art, a scientific art, in which we zone in and we try to say, okay, this portion of my overhead I'm assigning to my service department, and this portion I'm assigning to my installation department because it just makes sense. Now, when we actually start figuring, there's a difference between margin and markup. Markup is when you take something like in this figure here, $2,000 cost of goods sold, and we're trying to mark it up 50%. Well, if we multiply that times 0.5, that's all we did is we added 50% to that, which is 1,000. But when we divide it out, we didn't make 50% off of that. We only made 33%. That's why we want to look at margins when we're estimating a number of these. Now, there is a place for markup, and we'll talk about that on another time. But essentially, what we want to focus on this is your direct costs. And in this example, this is more of the replacement. This was on the other class. This would be gross profit. Gross profit is basically your overhead and your net profit. Gross profit is one thing. Net profit is the magical number. That's the one we're always looking at. So that's going to total up our 100%. Hopefully that quick review kind of brings everybody up to speed so that now we can actually jump in to flat rate now, or to service. So let's talk about one key thing up front. There are several categories that you can utilize to present your services in. Generally, it goes like this. This is my standard price. That's the one there in the middle, $408. And this is our overtime price. Now, if you're a member and you have a maintenance agreement, that's this price over here. But this is what you'll pay today. And of course, the idea for putting that here is, well, how do I pay that? And we want to offer maintenance agreements. If you're aware of that, just bear with me. But guys, maintenance agreement are your business future. What is Ron Smith said, that the road to wealth is paved with maintenance agreements. So what that means is you're building your customer base, not just somebody that calls you occasionally. That's your customer. They only call you. If they need something, they trust you. There's a relationship with you. So a relationship implies that we have a connection. So we're coming out to that house, we're building on that relationship, and we're always adding value to this customer's life. And that's how we do that. Now, when we're starting to use flat rate system, doesn't matter who you use. Basically, it's going to look like this. Generally, if you decide to offer a 15% discount to members, when you're building your prices, let's base it on this discounted number, because otherwise, if you calculated that you wanted to make 10% net profit and you give them a 15% discount, you just lost money. So we want to build our prices based on this, and then 15% higher basically will be your standard price. And then the additional 17%-ish, and these are just KPIs that are out there, would be the additional expenses that your overtime situation would warrant. So, you're having to pay an employee time and a half, or maybe you pay them a minimum of 2 hours if they leave home at night or Sunday or whatever. That will kind of give you an idea. So that's what we're doing. We're talking about these 3 different price levels. There's actually more. Let me just throw this out there. There's a primary repair, and there's a secondary repair. And the idea is, if I'm out there to replace the contactor and I'm charging $300, and that's the primary expense, but it's only $150 as a secondary, then I might, if I have something that's more expensive, utilize that secondary price so that I'm not like double whammy charging the customer, because it's that first. I mean, what are they paying for? Are they paying for the component? Are they paying for that first hour of time that your technician is out there, right? So we want to make sure that we cover that. Now, service fees appear high, and you're going to see this, but we need to charge this. We need to charge this because that's what it takes for the company to operate these types of numbers. So let's talk about some of them. One of them, these are some of the KPIs. Now, there's a lot of them out there, but generally, we're trying to shoot for about $250,000 per service truck, one technician. And that's about $1,000 a day, right? 5 days a week. That's 5,000 a week times 50 weeks is 250,000, because there's 2 weeks. Why? Weeks vacation, weeks worth of holidays, and then you can even have training days and all these other stuff built into that. So that's one KPI. This is a nice number to shoot for. I work with companies and know of other companies that laugh at this number. They'll do 3 and 4 times that. But we'll talk about that on that's another. Towards the end, we'll talk about that a little bit. Now, efficiency, no sales. What this means is when your service techs are working, how much time are they spent working, and how much, being productive, and how much time is considered inefficiency, right? We're just not, it's hard to be that efficient and you're always billable, especially on a flat rate system. So we need to base our price, not that we're 100% busy 40 hours a week. We're only about 80%, maybe less, 70% efficient, depending on your company. So these are factors that you'll want to play in as we're playing these numbers out. And then we're always factoring in support. Remember, we talked about how, how many office people or how much of their time is spent supporting the service department. This is generally the ratio, 1 to 3. Right? So about 33% on that. And then when you're looking at your total repair price, these are rules of thumbs as well. The numbers will deviate substantially, but these will keep you somewhat in the range. Your labor as a percentage of sale is 22%. In other words, if you had a $100 repair, you spent $22 on paying the technician. Parts and materials to the sale, if the cost went, somebody asked a question, it went $13, it's about $100 sale. That's what that's about. Now, this is a key KPI here. What is your gross margin per tech per day? What is that? So what we have to do is look at your overhead for your service department, divide that up, and figure out, every day, how much money above and beyond direct costs does this technician need to be billing on an average basis? Sales not included. In other words, just the repair. If they do an upsell and they sell a system, that don't count. If they do an upsell and they sell an IEQ piece, that doesn't count. We're talking about just repair, right? Then that should be somewhere in the 350 plus range, ish. But it really needs to be catered to your numbers, right? But this gives you a guideline as to what some of the other companies out there may be doing, so that if you find your prices are a little out of whack, you can kind of go back and see, what do I need to improve here? Now, your gross profit margin for your service department, that's generally pretty high. 37% in this example. Average ticket on no sales is about $300. So if you go out on a repair, one repair ticket, about $300 on average. That's we didn't do any sales or anything like that. The GP, obviously, per tech, per man. And I take that back. That actually can include sales that the technician actually does, not that he defers to the installation department. Okay, so let's say that you're an immature business model, meaning you're not at full capacity. And if you're watching this, odds are everybody on this call is inefficient, immature. We all need to get our business up to that level, right? And I say that because most people don't have it to this level. This is a success business model in which your installation department is always billing, have a job. Your 2-man crew has a job pretty much every day of the week, week. Why? Because they have enough support team around them, properly proportioned with enough of a customer base. And if they do their job, the numbers just work out to where there's always a job going in. right? Weather set apart, weather indifferent. Sure, high temperatures, low temperatures drive this number higher. But if we do this right, it doesn't matter what the weather is, because we have our systems in place, we're always generating this work and it just flows. This is where you want to be, guys. And so, but we have to face reality in the meantime. So we're in an immature business model right now. So there's some additional factors that we want to consider. And the primary ones are this: we're short on capacity. Okay, so these big companies are pricing because they pretty much can keep their guys running 40 hours a week. What about you? Do you let them work 25 hours, 30 hours, and then send them home the rest of the week? You might lose that employee. Or do we factor that labor in, put it back in the overhead, raise our overhead because our overhead's cheaper than the big competitors anyway, and carry that burden so that we don't lose those employees? And instead of sending them home, put them in the training room. Let's go through, let's role play, let's make them better. This is how it's done, guys. Less overhead. There again, if you have less overhead because you're a smaller, more immature business model, you can stack that, you can add to that overhead by taking your direct expenses for your field personnel's salaries or hourly pay, and factor that in, add that in, a percentage of it. You may have to send them home. I mean, you can't carry everybody if you don't have enough work, right? We need more, we need all the work we can get, but we're going to have to, I always carried my guys. I never sent them home. And a lot of times it cost me out when I should have sent them home. So just be balanced on that. Fewer opportunities. You're going to get less calls than the bigger companies, than a mature company, because the maturity is not there. The customer base isn't there. You don't have enough service agreements. You're not getting into enough homes. You don't have enough exposure. You don't have the relationship built to the point where they just say, I trust you. What do I need? Where do I sign? And I'm telling you, it's refreshing when you finally hit that point. And then this applies to pretty much everybody. Downtime, vacation, right? Holidays, training, flat rate time allotments. So if you have a flat rate allotment of a 1 hour to do a job, and your service tech is a little inexperienced and he takes 2 hours to do that job, that's a little bit of the inefficiency based on the experience of the technician. But a lot of times what will offset that is that technicians generally pay less than the one that can get in there and do it within the allotted hour. Travel time, a diagnostic time. That's why we do a separate diagnostic fee, and just productivity time in general. So that was the big one right there. That's what we really wanted to talk about before we dive into the first example. So let's just jump right in and let's break one down. Let's talk with, let me move my screen around. Let's talk about a repair. So let's talk about a motor, and these are made up numbers. You can put whatever you want to in there. But if we've got a motor here that your cost is $80, and you put a capacitor in there, just miscellaneous with wire nuts and what have you, and you decide, I've got $95 in parts. And your service technician, let's say you're paying him $25 an hour. Now you want to add the benefits and taxes and stuff burden to that. So whatever that would be, right? But for simple math, let's just call that a 1 hour job at $25. Well, 95 plus 25 is $120. See right here? And so this is our direct cost to replace that motor. Okay. Now our KPI, we decided that we have a 50% overhead for the service department. Now that's a little on the high side. You can go 50, 55%, but 30 would be nice, right? But 50% is pretty consistent, especially if you're a less mature business model. But we're shooting for a nice net profit of 20%. Well, 50 and 20 is 70. So we got to mark this rascal up 70%, right? And how do we mark it up 70? Well, we divide by 30. Remember, 100 minus 70, that's your 30 is your divisor. Okay, so down here where we go in the red, our $120 direct cost divided by 0.3 gives us a $400 members price. Remember, members is already discounted. And then we divide that by 0.85, which will add 15%. This is our standard price right here. $471 to replace this motor based on these numbers, and your numbers may be different. So, and then of course we divide that by 0.83 if we want a 17% divisor to get us at 566 in an overtime situation. But this is a really simple exercise that you can apply across the board. Now, one key thing to keep in mind, take and figure what your gross profit is. So in this case, if the standard is $471 and we subtract out that direct cost of $120, that's going to give us $351 for an hour's worth of work. That's good to know, because if you go out there and it's something really simple, and you're spending an hour, you need to be in that range. And it feels like, if we don't understand this, it feels like we may be overcharging. I go out there and I replace a fuse and I check everything out. It was just an old fuse. And I charge $300 for a fuse. You're going to hear that. So what we have to do is properly present that. We're here to get it running. The parts are free. We've heard Joe Crisara say that's a good example there. So this is an overview here. We can revisit that in just a few minutes, but let's go back to the very important component, because if you're sending your guys out and they're making $400, $470 per call, and they're getting a few of those every day, it's pretty nice. But what about when your week looks like this? This is what we're talking about, your mature business model. And this is so important. I'm going to beat this up. But look here, we've got some work on this day, but then we're training on that day. And then we've got some work lined up here and here. But these days, we don't have anything in the books. I know this is a 7-day calendar, but the same thing applies to a 5-day calendar. We don't have anything in the books. We need capacity. Okay. And so the variables for capacity need to be taken into account. So real quickly, here's an example on that. Let me move my little thing around here. And so let's take that $10,000 overhead. Okay. Let's say that your average gross profit on each job, this is after your direct cost, is $200. So we take that $10,000 divided by 200. Now we know we need 50 repairs every month. Every month. Now that's 12 calls per week just to hit break even. Do your service tech gets 12 calls during the shoulder seasons? Probably not. This is why we're talking about that mature business model. Now, what you can do is, if you're on these calls and you add sales in, like an IAQ or bundled repairs or some additional thing, and now your GP doubles, well, hey, you might be able to cut those 12 calls down to half, right? So that's the point there. So there's basically two strategies to dealing with low capacity: raise your prices or fill capacity. And I'm telling you guys, it's a lot easier to fill capacity in the long run. This is what we need to work on. This is what we need to focus on. So we're always adjusting our pricing, because we got to maintain this machine. We got to keep this boat afloat. Now, if we start, trying to carry our employees and we just can't, we're not covering it, we're going to go under. We're going to go under. We're going to start getting our vendors calling us, hey, you're late on the bills. And you're basically, our vendors' credit lines are financing our business. We start to fall behind, right? Get the collection calls. We don't want that. We don't need that. So how do we improve in the meantime? Let's talk about number one. Don't worry about raising your prices. Let's get them in line. Let's just raise the effectiveness. So let's talk about accessories. Okay. This is where your bonus is, right? This page right here is one of your best ones. So let me just read this to you real quick. So you come out, your technician comes out, and this is my little one-liner. I'm just kind of impromptu, wrote this down real quick, but it would go something like this. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, while I'm here today to fix your immediate problem, would you like me to go ahead and look around and make sure and check the entire system, make sure everything is safe, working properly, and there's no health issues? There's no extra charge. We just want to make sure that nothing gets overlooked. And you'll always, always, always get a yes. There's no extra charge. Would you like me to look around and check everything? This is how the conversation starts with IAQ. This is how the conversation starts with these hot spots and these cold spots. And this is how you get permission to check everything out and offer things beyond the broken capacitor, the broken contactor, the lead that burned itself off the compressor. This is how we get that done. So we can come in and we can offer accessories, and we can also offer bundled services. Okay, so what are bundled services? Okay, so I came in for the contactor, but you know what? The manufacturers, bless their hearts, they're good to us. sometimes they don't use the most robust components. Maybe they used a 30 VA contactor, and you come back and you say, you know what, Mrs. Jones, let's go ahead and this contactor is about to go. We just found, let's say, a related component, capacitor. The capacitor is gone. We're going to go back and we're going to put in a more robust component. In fact, let's go ahead and put in a more robust contactor. And these are higher volt amps. So we're going to upgrade the transformer, which feeds all the voltage, make sure it can handle the load and everything else. So we're going to take this old system, we're going to get plenty out of it, and we're going to take care of all of these while we're here, so that you're not calling us back in 3 months, right? And this is smart. This is smart. Now, this may be counterintuitive, but I'll never forget. Real quick story. When I was a little boy, I had a single mom, and I was about 15 years old, and my best two buddies were brothers. Their dad would bring me over and let me work on his car. And he had, it was like a Grand Prix. Anyway, you open up the hood, and we were in there changing the spark plug wires. And I said, well, there's nothing wrong with these. He goes, yeah, but I upgrade them periodically, and I never break down. His hoses were new. All the spark plug wires were new. All of the belts were new. Everything he took care of. It was an old car, but it was in really good operating order. That's what we're doing. Your customers will love you for doing this. And now, instead of having those 12 calls that you need every week, now maybe you only need 6. Does this make sense? This is how this is done. And indoor air quality is a great opportunity there. Duct cleaning, there's a host of different things. All you need is permission for your service techs to get out there. This will help you out in your pricing. So let's talk about how to price one of these. Now, there's some factors in there. If you offer spiffs like a little sales commission for your selling tech. So if your technician's out there and there's a bad blower motor, and they add a humidifier, there's one on the truck, they go out and they put it on, they sell it, then he needs to be rewarded and compensated financially. So maybe you build in $50 or something like that. And man, your technicians love that. And so they're going to get better at offering these solutions. The homeowner wins. They got what they needed. The technician wins. He takes pride in his work and he's making more money. And you win because you just doubled your GP on a single service call, potentially, right? So that's why we do this. Like I said, figuring that gross profit per man hour. Remember, we take that $471 job and we backed out $120 worth of direct costs, the technician's labor and all the parts. And that was our GP for 1 hour. What was that? 300-ish? I forget now, 350. And then the cost of the accessory, and then the value of the product. A lot of times things are worth more than we actually charge, and we want to take a look at that. So let's break one quick example down. We're good on time. And let's talk about an IAQ cell. So here's an example here on how you might calculate the cost on one. This is a primary task, okay? So here we go. We say it takes about an hour and a half. Pete? Yes, sir.
Maybe really quickly, you had a question come in the chat that, well, you're just kind of did it. I want you to get, how do you figure out your call rate?
I just messed up something. Hang on a minute. I've got my screen frozen, and that's out.
Didn't want to throw you off there, but I know you kind of wanted to get that Wayne.
No worry. Okay. So your call out rate. You talking about Wayne? You talking about your service charge? The call out rate, is that the rate for the service call, the diagnostic fee?
Right. So
I mean, generally
they're all over the board. $150 to come out, 120, 90, 80. How do you figure that into the service call, or how much, what to charge?
Excellent question, Wayne. One of the key factors is your service area, how much travel time on average. We want to basically build that in and make sure that that's accounted for if you charge a diagnostic fee. Now, what many contractors are doing is they're taking their diagnostic fee of $120 and they're reducing it down to $39, right? Because they have built in the price on their rate a higher fee. So, I mean, I just got a thumbs down from Dennis. So it depends on your particular strategy on that. I kind of like being profitable in everything I do and being above board. So that's one. Can you explain what flat rate is? Hey, Stefan, Yeah, what flat rate is, instead of back when I first started, they paid me about $10 an hour, but my company charged $40 an hour. And so the way it worked back then was you called our company, he's on his way, and the clock just started. And we're charging $40 an hour to drive out there, $40 an hour to do everything, $40 an hour to run, get the part, and come back. And when we get that ticket signed, that's when the clock stops. Then we go on the next customer's clock, if you will. So essentially, that's time and material. So we're charging by the hour. So what Flat Rate did is they said, listen, let's just build all that into the actual task time. So it might take you, 15 minutes to drive out, 10 minutes worth of interaction with the customer, another 30 minutes to get everything dialed in and figure out what you need to do, or let's say an hour to figure out what you got to do, get the part replaced, get everything up and running, and then get back and do the paperwork. Well, what we do is we kind of average all that out, and we inflate the billable hour, the actual productive time. So on a motor, they may give you 1 hour. But that 1 hour may be $250 an hour based on your numbers. Now, when you go flat rate, don't get overwhelmed by this. Their systems will walk you through. What we're doing here is we're showing you how to do this yourself using your own numbers. But on yours, what you'll want to do is take your numbers, blend with theirs, run your numbers on their tasks. Because if they say that replacing a motor should take an hour and all your guys do it in 2 hours, or whatever the repair is, you know what I'm saying, then we need to factor all that in. So that's what flat rate is, and that's how that works. Now, your call out rate, your service fee, Wayne, it's got to be built in. I mean, just you can put it on the front, you can put it in the middle. It doesn't matter, as long as that customer pays for your time to get out there and diagnose. So there needs to be a minimum that they pay. So you decide what that is. So if it's $120, I'm out there, your repair is $500, and plus $120 to come out. If they say no, thank you, they say fine. You can say fine. May I have my $120? You don't lose a dime. That's what that means. Is that cool? Okay. So how do you figure it to make sure I didn't miss anybody? Good evening, gentlemen. All right. So bear with me.
You're good. I don't see anything else in the chat. Thanks. I just wanted to bring that up while you were on that subject. And yeah, my thumbs down was just those little like $29 come out and diagnose fees. Oh, those bug me.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It can be done. A lot of this boils down to your particular style and how you want to factor that in. Okay, so here we are. Back to our example on a primary task versus a secondary. Well, let's just do the primary. So it takes us about an hour and a half to put this IEQ piece in. Let's see, additional setup and customer time an hour. So we figured 2.5 hours on this total job. Your labor rate is $27.50, and we multiply that times 2.5, and so this is what the labor burden is. This is what your direct labor is. But what about the direct parts, pieces, material? So the IAQ piece, let's call it $200, and you put $500 worth of electrical tape, wire nuts. So we come in at $205. We add that labor here back in. Well, that's $1 off. Oh well, we're gonna be expensive, and so we add that we add that in. And so let's see here. These two add up to $273. And remember our divisor, we wanted to 70%. 50% was overhead, and only leaves 20% worth net profit. So we divide that by 0.3. Remember, 7 plus 3 is 10, 100%. And so what is that? It's $912. Now we got $40 spiff that we're going to add on top of that. So $912 if we don't spiff. But this particular, as a primary task, we're out there and say, listen, this new humidification system will deliver these particular results, whatever it is that they happen to deliver and your homeowner needs. And so for an additional $953, you've got that covered. Now, if we pull out that direct cost, $912.50, because we took out the spiff, minus that $273, and we divide that by 2.5 hours. Now we look at our GP per hour. So whatever that might happen to be, let's see here off the top of my head, $600. So yeah, 246, $200 some per hour. Not bad. And just depends on what yours is. But back to the point, guys, pricing is one of those fluid things. It's a very personal thing. It's very customized. It's very unique to you and your business. As an immature business, I can't overemphasize this, we got to get that capacity up. We want to price right. You're going to be adjusting your numbers as you go. So we got to revisit this, particularly in your early stages. We got to get you at full capacity. We got to get the customer base in place. We got to keep that installation crew changing out. We got to keep those service techs busy. If they're not doing repairs, they're doing preventive maintenances because we fill those schedules ahead of time. We've got to take those average tickets, do a better servicing job. Remember the line? While I'm here today to fix your immediate problem, would you like me to go ahead and check the entire system to make sure everything is safe, working properly, and there's no health issues? There's no extra charge. We just want to make sure we do a thorough job. We don't miss anything. These are the type of conversations that take your GP and double them, and your ability to pay your bills, and cuts the strain and sweat of that in half. Okay, and so how do you do that? Well, this is one way right here. This is a virtual classroom. Okay, let's talk about a couple of more. We are doing all these programs all the time, guys. We've got programs right here. You can see them right here for as little as $99 a month. And you are in a professional group getting real information, not some Facebook group where you ask a question and people make fun of you. That's not professional. There are a lot of options. So let's talk about it. Mastermind groups. That's what this is over here. Workshop groups. ICE is a workshop group. This is an example. So ICE are your processes and systems. What is it that we do that makes it efficient and makes the customer go, yes, that's what I want? There's a process, there's a system that we duplicate over and over. And so ICE is, we take those processes, and we implement them. C, we customize them to you so that you're unique and you're different and you're perceived as better than your competition. And then E, it evolves as you evolve as a company. You become more mature. And then, of course, there's the virtual training groups. There's individual training. There's group coaching. There's individual coaching. There's virtual classrooms. All this stuff is out there, guys. But a mature operation, for example, has a training room in there for your employees. When you start having employees representing your company, do not trust them just because they know the technical side to represent your company without training. You put them in the training room and you train them every week. They need that. That's what they need. And guess what? So do you. So do I. We all need a coach. We all need a trainer, and we all need a peer group. So you figure out what you can afford and be a part of something. But I just want to throw that out there because we are doing that. Dennis is on one. He and I share one group. These guys are sharp. I mean, we're learning from them. They're learning from everybody. Benefits. That's how it's done, guys. No man is an island. You know the old saying. For those of you who want to know about that, I'll do a free strategy session. Anybody on the group, there's no charge. Just go to either email me at hvacgreatness@gmail.com or go to hvacgreatness.com, follow the little funnel there, and set up a free strategy session. There is no charge. And that's what this whole thing's about, guys. So bear with me. I got to fix my screen. Is there any questions while we're moving on? I just really wanted to make that point, guys, because 90% of your struggles, 90%, because I know, guys, started my business out of the back of a freaking station wagon because I got laid off during the recession in the late 80s. I had to make it. You talk, I had a brand new baby, two little girls and a new baby boy, wife that didn't work. You talk about putting some pressure on. I know what it takes to start with nothing, to do it all yourself, to try to figure, and you know how much money I lost and wasted because I didn't know what I was doing. I started having employees, and they're saying, hey, Pete, what do I do here? You do this. Hey, Pete, how do I handle that? You handle it this way. Well, who did Pete go to? Who do you go to? We all need somebody to, pick their brain and, and help each other along. But I'll get off my soapbox on that. But hopefully the pricing kind of helps you figure out, we just don't want any dollars getting away from us, right? So when we add everything up, it's all an art, right? There's different pricing methods. The point is we don't want to miss anything, and we don't want to undercharge. And if we don't understand our numbers, it is really, really easy to undercharge and undervalue our services, because the homeowner will not understand it unless you sit down and you give them a similar pricing class, right? They're not going to understand it. So we have to handle that a little bit differently, but you must understand it. Let me give you one other one. Flat rate. This is back to the question, what is flat rate? Back in I'm going to say 94, that would have been about 96. 1996, Pete Ramsey, we were the very first in the entire area to implement a flat rate system. So I went through the training, and I took my books and I gave them to my techs and said, here's our prices. Now go get them. So they go out and they were doing flat rate. They open up this book, and it's $400 for this, and it's $500 for that. But I had my weekly meetings. I had my training room. So we're sitting in a meeting Tuesday mornings. We always did it Tuesday. Mondays were too crazy, but we wanted it early in the week. So whatever we taught, they practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday before the weekend, so they don't forget. But I remember asking one of my technicians, hey, his name is Stacy. Stacy, what happened to that blower motor replacement? Did you not get the repair? He said, Pete, the owner said that price was just too expensive, and I don't blame him. It was. Now, this is why we do training. Thank goodness I had just finished my financials class. I worked under Ruth King. Maybe you know her. She's fantastic. She's been around for a long time. And we stopped right there. We took the grease pen, board, which I had, and we all right in front of them. I took every direct expense and applied it, and we broke it down. Now, this was a long time ago. And it came up to $119 per hour. I said, $119 is what we must charge. $119 per hour. Now, remember, we just came off of like $50 an hour. Now we're at $119 because it was flat rate. It's based on that particular allotment of time, not all of it. So it all has to be kind of calculated in there. $119 an hour, guys. Our books are charging $120. You could have heard a pin drop. That same technician says, we need to raise our prices. I saw the eyes widen. I saw the mouths drop. From that time on, they kicked it with flat rate. This is your price, and it's a good price. Versus, here's your price, right? It's not that obvious, but if your employees don't believe in what they're doing, you'll never get there. You must train. And they need to understand the numbers to a certain degree. Maybe not to the level that you need to, but if you want them on board and going, this is a good price, sign right here, then we need to make sure that they know the value that it has. Same things with your maintenance agreement programs, all the different services that you have. Part of the training isn't how to just sell it to that consumer. It's how to sell it to your employees so that they're sticking their chest out and saying, not only are we the best, we offer the best. And, you can't fake that kind of communication. It's awesome stuff, guys. Back off the soapbox. Let's see here. We got another question here. What's the best way to separate install from service to calculate your revenue? Paul, that's if you need someone to walk through that with you, we can provide that. But generally speaking, I rushed through it. I kind of slowed down on the night before last's class, but it kind of goes like this. We take every one of those expenses and we literally consider, you may actually have two lists. Okay. I spend $600 a month in cell phone usages. Let me take and separate my service team and my installers team's cell phones and their bills, and they go on two separate lists. Maybe I know that 60%, 75% of all of my office staff, all their time is spent doing billing, call taking, or call follow-ups, or whatever supporting service, and only about 25% on install. So maybe we need to skew all of that associated costs over that. It's a very manual way at first. Now, if you use software, if you use an Excel spreadsheet, it makes it a little easier and it'll calculate it for you, but it's really good to do it manually as well so that you can kind of deep dive understand it at a deeper level. So, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it can be done. It's not rocket science, but going through the actual exercise with a professional coach, a professional trainer, professional class, whatever, that will really help you. It really will on separating those. And it's hard, especially when you are the service department, you are the installation department, you are the salesperson, you're the manager, you do the bill. I understand that, but we need to start now as an immature business, setting our pricing up based in a way that as we grow, that stuff's already been properly allotted, or at least approximately done, and we tweak those as we go. So that's a process. That's absolutely is. Great question. Wayne, can you use this formula for furnace AC maintenance? I skipped the maintenance portion. Did I not put that in there? Bear with me, guys. Let me look at something real quick. I thought that was in the slide.
Not a maintenance agreement, just a person that calls out of the blue says, hey, I want a furnace service. How much do you charge?
Yeah, that's, dang it, where is that? Okay. I think I actually skipped that. So let's just go ahead and just cover that right now. Just bear with me one second. I got to press all the buttons, guys. Yeah, I think I just skipped this because I put it on the grease board and this is it. So yeah, so when you're doing a tune-up, you calculate just like you do service. If you're a service tech and you're out there in service time, you're going to have to get your full wages. You can't stop billing $300 GP and go do an $80 maintenance visit or $100 maintenance visit. That doesn't make good financial sense. However, you can take these tune-ups and say, listen, if I do it today, it's going to be $300, but we can push you over into a program, a maintenance program, and we put you, we schedule it during our less busy times, and you'll save significantly. This is a calculation for this. And guys, I do apologize. I can't believe I skipped this slide. So here are the factors. Your very first year, generally you want to factor in 3. I'm here today. Let's get the first one done. 6 months from now, we get the next one done. 12 months from now, that's 3. We have 3 followed in, right? So each year after that, you only have 2 visits, but generally about 38% is a good GP. But let me say this. You cover your overhead. But if you even break even on maintenance agreements, you are good, because that is where the gold is. It's through maintenance agreements that you're going to get all those extra sales opportunities, right? So maintenance agreements you provide a service, but you also have sales opportunities. So in this particular example, we break it down this way. It takes about 15 minutes. We got 3 trips out there. That's 45 minutes each for that first year. Either the furnace or the AC is about 45 minutes. One of them is going to be done twice. Like in this case, the furnace is done twice. So that's 90 minutes because we did that one twice and this is once. And let's say they have an accessory on there and it takes about 15 minutes, whatever. So we add this up and it takes about 3 hours and 15 minutes for the first year, and it'll be less than that later. Well, our burdened labor rate, let's call it $25 times 3.25 hours for 3 visits, 3 trips. It's all factored in there. It works out to direct costs, no overhead, $81.25, and plus a commission, because usually there's about a $20 commission for renewals on maintenance agreements, right? So your direct costs on that would be $101. My mother, you gotta love mom. $101.25, right? So let's now in the blue, we put that on top. We add our 38%. The divisor is just the opposite of that 100. So divided by 0.62 gives us 38%. You get that. $163 a year divided by 12 months, $14 a month, guys. $14 a month. And in most cases, you're talking about $20 a month thereabout is what's being charged. So this is how you would calculate a basic maintenance agreement, for example. And you can certainly charge more, but all I'm saying is, even if you break even, you fill those schedules. This is where the money's made. This is where your capacity gets filled from. This is your warm lead. You do a promotion right now on Facebook, and you run that ad. You go on 10 estimates on new equipment, you may get 2 or 3 jobs. You go on 10 estimates with your maintenance crew, you're probably going to get 10 sales, but certainly you're going to get 8 or 9. This is where it's at. This is a mature business model. That's what this is all about. Thank you so much, Wayne. Gosh, I almost missed that.
So Pete, on that, okay, that's for just a furnace and AC, correct?
We broke that up. Remember, we had 45 minutes for air conditioning season, 45 minutes for heating season of actual tune-up time.
So now, say if you go into a home that has 2 systems, 2 furnaces, 2 ACs.
It's still right in there.
How do you factor that in?
Well, in that case, let's say we're going out there. We have the same 15 minutes 3 times, but in this case, we'd double these numbers. So we'd have the same travel time. We just add this back in, and then you come up with additional hours and divide it back out. Does that make sense? So instead of spending 45 minutes on 1 furnace, we'd spend 45 minutes on 2, and it would be 90 minutes, or the actual furnace time. Mm-hmm. If that's what it is. Maybe it's 30 minutes. Maybe 15 minutes to set up out of your truck, so you can back that out. But I would just do it basically by something like this, and that's going to jump up. But another big factor is the value. If we're charging $20 for the first system and for $14 for each additional, you are more than covered. Now, you have 20 maintenance agreements. I'm sorry, you have $20 per month maintenance agreements. You have 500 maintenance agreements under your belt. That's $10,000 per month in your bank, whether you're out there working or not, because you're maintaining those 500 customers. Now, that is a bit of a nightmare on scheduling and things like that. So we have to work on systems to keep that going. But when you're in these homes and you're doing, preventive maintenances, and you ask that question, I'm going to look around, make sure I'm going to give you a full report on everything. We want to make sure you're safe, that everything's operating as it should. Something's not getting ready to go. And maybe you'll come across that contactor and you'll go, look, man, we need to go ahead and replace those compressor leads too. Look, they're starting to turn green, right? Let's go ahead and replace them. Let's go ahead and put a hard start kit on that compressor. It's gotten kind of old. It's going to need a little bit of help pretty soon. Let's go ahead and put it in place now. Right? So these are things that we can take that equipment, bring it up to snuff. You went in for, $100 visit or less on a maintenance agreement, and you left with $2,000 worth of upgrades and stuff, and your customers just loving you for it, hugging your neck. If it's done right, you guys know George's on here. He shared a review with me, and his was he was complaining about the people that didn't do what he did. These other companies aren't thorough. This guy's thorough. He took his time, explained it, he checked everything. He didn't just throw some Freon in it and run down to the next job. All are important factors. So maintenance agreement prices are cleaning not covered for breakdowns during the year. Let's see. I think what you mean, Dan, is no, it does not cover what they're entitled to on that. Remember when we did the members price was 15% cheaper than the regular maintenance agreement customers. This type of maintenance agreement, they're entitled to a discount on any repairs. You take care of, if there's a repair, you give them a 15% break, but you're still meeting your numbers because that's what you built your prices on to begin with. Okay. Hopefully that clears that up. And then, yeah, if you have to do like a pull and clean where you pump the condenser down, cut the line set, pull the entire coil out, that's service, guys. That's not maintenance. That's somebody that really let their system go, and they're just going to have to pay, for that fee. Things like that. If we got any more questions before I stop the recording, we can keep going afterwards if you guys want to. What's the best way to separate and install? Okay, we talked about that. Pretty good questions for such a light group. Oh, no, we got plenty in here. It's like, yeah, that's good. Any more questions? It's your chance. You could be famous. Before I stop the recording, here's a chance to jump on there. Okay, we're going to stop the recording portion. Hey guys, Pete Ramsey here, HVAC Greatness. Hopefully this has helped you out with pricing on your service repairs, figuring out on your maintenance agreements. Almost forgot. Thank you, Wayne. How to price your accessories. How to separate these from your standard price. You'll give a discount for members, and then there's an overtime price. And even within those are a primary price for a primary repair and a secondary price, because you don't have to go in there and set up twice. You're already there, right? So you can pass some of those savings back along to your customers, but you still make a better GP. Customer wins, you win, your technicians win, everybody's happy, everybody gets their 40 hours at work, all the different things are covered. But this can only happen when these things are in balance. Number one, we've got to understand our overhead. We have to properly separate it, and we have to properly price for our jobs. And until we get to full maturity, you must have everything in place in order to have the maintenance base that you need. You got to have the customer base. You got to have the training in place. You got to have the support, role playing. You got to have the incentives in place. You have to have the accountability in place. All of these are part of a business model that's mature and is rocking, right? Most of us aren't there yet, but we have to define what that is, define where we are, and chart a very clear and straight path to there, and you'll be there before you know it or not. We can be like the guy that called me, and I'm not going to say his name because he might see this recording. 60 some odd years old, just lost his guy right before the summer because he couldn't carry him the 40 hours. He leaves him to go take a job that guaranteed him 40 hours. And there he was facing the summer, 65 years old, climbing in attics and just overwhelmed. What am I going to do? What you're doing now, what you're struggling with now will be here next year. It'll be here the year after that. It'll be here the year after that. It'll be here 20 years after that if we don't make the adjustments. Guys, there's just too much good information. We're in the information age by far. There's just too much good information out there for us. So, be sure to take advantage. Join a group, right? Take some classes. Get a coach. It's really affordable. It's not that bad. Like I said, we've got programs for $99, for $99 a month. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you guys for joining us. If you're watching this on the recorded view, we're going to post this over on YouTube. There will be a playlist. Part 1 is equipment. Part 2 is what we discussed tonight on service. Pete Ramsey, HVAC Greatness. I appreciate y'all. We'll see you on the